Hello, welcome and welcome back. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Esther and I'll be showing you step by step on how to make this lovely girl's dress. You will need a fabric of your choice and some buttons. For me, I use 1.5 yards of fabric, that is by 60 inches, and 3 buttons for this dress. You will also need a basic bodice pattern. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace my basic bodice pattern for both the front and for the back. So assuming you have traced yours, so I'm going to make a few adjustments to it. Firstly, I'm going to adjust the neck depth. So on the neckline, original neckline, I'm coming down 2 centimeters. And I'm doing this connection for both the front and the back. You can decide to make your scarf whatever style you choose, it's all up to you. Since it's a sleeveless dress, so I'm coming in by 2 centimeters for both the front and the back armhole. From there, I am going to connect to the original armhole. This adjustment just makes the strap to sit better. Next is for me to mark my desired strap width. So whatever width you want for your strap, go ahead and mark it. I want a 1.5 centimeter strap, which is about half an inch, and I'm marking that out. So I'm going to add a button allowance at the back. You can add zipper allowance. So I'm marking 2 centimeters because I'm using 1 centimeter button. With this few adjustments, we are pretty much done with the pattern drafting. So it's just to cut out the pattern. For the strap, you're going to measure the front strap and the back strap, and you're going to take away 1 centimeter from that measurement. So go ahead, measure your front and back strap and take away 1 centimeter from that measurement, and that will be your strap length, and you'll be cutting 2 of the straps. Don't forget to add your seaming allowance when you're cutting it on your fabric. You can use it the way it is, or you separate the back and the front and add extra seaming allowance by the side to stitch it back on. So those are the 2 options you have. Please don't forget your strap, and don't forget to add seaming allowance to the length of your strap. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and use this pattern and cut my fabric. When cutting on fabric, please note that you cut 2 pieces for the back, and you're going to cut a lining to go with it as well. While for the front, you are cutting the center front unfold. Don't forget to add seaming allowance to your straps. So here are my pieces. For my strap, I decide to just fold it in and give it a press. So what I have is just exactly how I had marked. That's 1.5 centimeters in, and I also added seaming allowance. So the same seaming allowance I use for the top of my bodice is what I use for the strap. So that being said, for the back, I'm using the same fabric as lining, and I cut 2 pieces for the main fabric and also 2 pieces for the lining. And also for my front, I'm using the same as lining, so I cut both of them on fold. Then for the skirt piece, you know that to have your skirt is your dress length minus bodice length. But in this case, since we decide to divide the length into 2, you are going to add a seaming allowance. We are joining this back to the bodice, and we are going to be attaching it to the other tier. We divide the length into 2, so those are where allowances will go. And of course, the hemming part, you will need allowance to also hem this dress, so don't forget to include allowance. For the width of the skirt, the down part is 1.5 times wider than the mid part, while the mid part is 1.5 times wider than the bodice. To start with the stitching, we are starting with the straps, so you do well to stitch your straps. And when you're done stitching it, just make sure you give it a press. It's time to bring it over to your bodice. Now you are going to place it, making sure that the right side of your bodice is out. Place it about 1 centimeter away from the armhole and ensure to pin it in place. And you are doing this for the 2 strap. Then you bring your lining over, sandwiching your strap in between. You're going to go ahead and stitch the armhole and the neckline of your bodice. When you're done stitching, go ahead with your scissors and notch the armhole. Be careful not to cut the seam, and don't forget to snip the corners. Then you turn it right side out. You can give this a good press so everything stays nicely. Now it's time to stitch the back bodice on. So you're going to place the back bodice right side facing. So right side should be out. Make sure that your strap is straight, and also place it 1 centimeter away from the armhole. With that, you are going to bring the lining piece and place it right side facing, and you are going to stitch this in place. If it does any good, you can go ahead and pin the strap properly before you place the lining. Stitch the armhole and the neck line of your bodice. After stitching, do well to notch as well and snip the corners. When you're done notching, you turn it right side out. Then you can go ahead and give this a good press. Next is for you to place right side facing the back and the front. You're going to stitch this bodice by the side. So open the side, place right side facing. You can pin it in place, but I want the side to be stitched with a seaming allowance. After stitching, you should have something like this. So I've added a reinforcement to my center back because I'll be adding buttons to it. So I just added a reinforcement. Now place it right side facing and stitch. If you're going to be using a zipper, you can leave this for later. If you're using a button, place it right side and stitch. After stitching the bodice, do well to set it aside. Let's work on the skirts. So for the skirts, I'm going to gather the lower layer of it, and I'm going to flip it over right side facing. I'm going to stitch that gathered part to the straight part of the first layer. So this is what I mean. I have stitched and I've even gone ahead and overlocked the raw edge. So on the right side, you can go ahead pushing the seaming allowance towards the flat side of the skirts. You can give it a stitch so that it stays in place. So now I'm placing my skirt right side facing. I'm going to go ahead and match the gathered part. From the up part, I'm going to measure 7.5 centimeters. That is 3 inches down. So from that point, I'm going to stitch downward, leaving the upper part opened. Now cut a piece of fabric that is 2 times that opening length, and the width should be 5 centimeters. That's about 2 inches in width. So we are using this to make our placket. You might need more in width if you are making a bigger placket. It all boils down to your choice. So you can place it right side facing, and you can stitch using your 1 centimeter seaming allowance that you are used to stitch the center back. That is one way to go about it. Or you can make sure that the right side is facing the wrong side of your skirt. This is my favorite way of doing it. the right side is facing the wrong side of my skirt, I'm going to go ahead and stitch. For you to be able to stitch it easily, you have to give it a bit of a snip, so that your seam right there, you can give it a little bit of snip for easy sewing. Immediately you snip it, it will be easy to sew. And this is mine that I had stitched, so I'm just going to tuck in that raw edge and I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to stitch it again. So this time I'm stitching as close to the edge as possible. So with that few steps, I have a placket right here. If you want a more closer picture of how to make a placket, let me know, but I think there are a lot of videos on how to make one. So right now you can decide to switch this placket either to the left or to the right, whichever way you want it to overlap. You do well to turn it to overlap. And for the excess that we had, just use your scissors and trim it off. Now it's time to gather that skirt and stitch it to the bodice. Please watch the placement of your placket. Whichever side you want it to come on top, please tuck it in and present it the way you want it to appear on the finished garment. Then you go ahead and stitch your bodice to your skirt with your placket placed the way you want it to appear. So right here I've stitched my bodice to my skirt and I've finished that seam. I also had to give a slight stitch under my placket so that it stays the way I want it to stay. Next will be for me to make my buttonholes, then stitch my buttons and hem the down part of my dress. So here I have done that. I've hemmed the down part and I've made a buttonhole and I've stitched my button on. And this dress is ready. With those few simple steps, you can have yourself a lovely dress for a girl. If this tutorial has been helpful in any way or any form, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. See you in the next tutorial and bye for now.